Ready to explore the latest trends in real estate? What are innovators in building planning for the future? The Ralph Bivins Project digs deep into the minds of key players in the industry and discussions with today's thought leaders. I'm Ralph Bivins. As a journalist who's covered the real estate and development industry for decades, I invite you to join me as we probe for new ideas and projects that will be making headlines soon. We love to ask hard questions to interesting people. When you've done over 100,000 interviews, you seem to get enlightening answers. Don't forget to download and review this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your audio inspiration. You can also watch and subscribe on YouTube or visit realtynewsreport.com. Welcome, this is Ralph Bivins at the Ralph Bivins Project. We're here today with Kris Larson, he's president of the Downtown Houston Plus Association and Central Houston Inc. He's got a lot of things on his plate with downtown Houston right now, and we got a lot of great things to talk about. I mean, welcome, Kris.
Thank you, Ralph. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot on our plate, and as you can see, there's a lot on my desk too. So my apologies for the messy office.
Oh, no problem. Hey, I'm just thinking about. We've got a lot to talk about. You know, if you guys, there's an amazing park that we're going to discuss in a few minutes. 30 acres. I know you're thinking, how can they find 30 acres? But it will appear out in there. Just wait. Just hang on. We're going to talk about that in a second. And we're talking, Kris is kind of main cog in the wheel here that's going to result in closing down part of Main Street to autos. That's a little part, and we're not talking about just a parade. We're talking about some of the early part of Main Street that, hey, the Allen brothers are down there. It's been there forever. We're going to talk about that in a second, and it's got a lot of upside there. And then, of course, we got downtown's got a humongous project with the convention center. I think it's going to change a lot of things around there, and he's got other great stuff happening. But we just want to start off with breaking news here. Breaking news that we got. That we just got a press release just last night, I guess, and talking about the Kris's appointment to be chairman of the International Downtown Association, which has, I think, 2,500 associations in North America, and then maybe 4,000 globally. It's huge, and so congratulations on that appointment, Kris.
Well, thank you, Ralph. It's a real honor. I've been a part of the International Downtown Association for over 20 years and been a member of its board now for 12 years. So it's really a great honor to be able to serve my peers as chair of the board.
Well, congrats. Hey, what about the, how's this? I know you'll be there. You'll be in, speaking to all these people, and I would suspect that it will mean that a lot of extra eyeballs are going to be, well, what's Kris doing in his city of Houston? What's happening there with that downtown? And so tell us a little bit about the impact of that spotlight.
Sure. So, as chair of the board, it affords me an opportunity to have a regular audience with our membership. And you mentioned the thousands of place management organizations. Now we've got a great deal of them here in North America, particularly in the U.S. and Canada, but international members as well. So between South Africa, the UK, Japan, and others, really has a global reach. And it's an organization that is dedicated to the well-being of our cities. So as chair, it affords me the opportunity and the privilege to be able to speak to our members, to be able to understand the needs of our member cities, to be able to work with our board of directors and our very talented staff at the IDA to be able to develop things like an advocacy agenda to be able to address our broader issues. But then also, it's really about facilitating information sharing between cities. And so while in economic development, you often hear of a context of, this city competing for, the headquarters of this company with another city. And you kind of see those sort of battles that are being played out on the economic development front. On a day-to-day basis, cities actually spend a lot of time learning from one another. Every city is different. Each city creates a different environment and laboratory for learning and experimentation, adaptation, and really responsiveness to the ongoing change that's occurring across the globe, right? Whether it's political change, environmental change, or little things like technology and innovation, and the way that these changes play out in our cities. We're in a constant need to adapt and respond to that change. And as we are trying new things in response to environmental change or environmental stimuli, we share that information with one another so that others can learn from what's working in our own communities. And that's really at the heart of the IDA, is about that information exchange for the well-being of all of our member cities.
Have you seen anything that you think particularly would be great for Houston to study and perhaps put into place? Is there any new ideas popping up and you go, wow, that's a great idea? We ought to talk about implementing that in our market.
Well, I would say that there's a lot of learning right now as it relates to topics like office conversions, as an example, or when we think about things, I know we're going to talk about the EDO cap and the impact of the highway project in Houston. Just 2 weeks ago, a delegation from Houston, we were up in just locally here in Texas, but visiting our friends in Dallas to study the impact of the Clyde Warren Park, the way that, its lessons learned, it's now been in existence for close to 15 years. And so in some ways it's beneficial to be able to allow others to go first so that you can learn from their mistakes, and think about how we apply, that sort of that knowledge locally and how it informs the decisions that we need to make as we are at the precipice of these major investments, right? And we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, and so every little lesson learned has the opportunity to be able to save our community millions of dollars and have a broader and more meaningful impact.
Yeah, well, that's we're looking at hearing about these some of these new ideas. I know you've got your state of downtown luncheon coming up October 16th, and you're going to be speaking there about the state of downtown. Looking forward to hearing you, man.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's it's an annual event. It's an opportunity where, I get to speak to our local audience, business and civic leaders, political leaders from across the Houston region, to talk about, the well-being of our downtown community. It's really critical that we not only address, a lack of information, but also to tell the story in a holistic and accessible way, because there are, so many great individual news stories, and the way that we receive information oftentimes about our communities is on a one-off basis. And so you're reading one story about one thing, and rarely do you have an opportunity to see it all come together. And our State of Downtown event creates that space, where we do have an audience, with leadership from across Houston to talk about the well-being of downtown holistically and talk about the impact of all of those small moves and really what it's doing collectively to move our community forward. So we're very excited for that event as well. We hope you're going to be there, Ralph.
I will. I'm looking forward to it. What you mentioned a minute ago, the Edo Cap Park, and we talked about this. We were alluding to it earlier. 30 acres. That it's going to be transformative. It's going to change downtown, and I think the whole city really. Tell us a little bit about that. that huge opportunity that's going to happen. It may take a few years, but it's going to happen. It's going to really change things.
Well, not only may it take a few years, it will take a few years. This is a massive undertaking, and I think for the benefit of your listeners, I really want to talk about this in ways that your average listener will understand. And if you close your eyes and you picture that very large elevated highway that bisects between Minute Maid Park and Shell Stadium in Edo, we all know about the impact of I-69 and I-59 as they move north to south, through our community, and how it divides downtown from Edo. In this new environment, through the highway project, through the implementation of that segment of the highway project, those highways will be trenched. So you can imagine digging a very, very large trench through Edo, which is really going to include the area of about Chartres through St. Emmanuel, right? And then essentially burying the highway there all throughout downtown. So it's going to be about 3/4 of a mile long, this new trenched highway segment, right? And then after the trenching is done and the highway is placed below grade, we'll be building a cap on top of it. And so that cap will serve as a lid on top of the highway. And with that lid, we have the opportunity to put things on it. And where we're going as a community right now is thinking about programmatic elements on top of this cap, which is going to create this 30-acre, let's just call it a park space, right? But at the end of the day, it is a very large space. It's approximately 5 times the size of Discovery Green. And so there's a tremendous opportunity to introduce all sorts of programmatic elements there, whether it is a very large amphitheater, right? So that we can have a space to convene tens of thousands of people for a really great outdoor concert, or parks and open spaces and other types of recreational amenities. It really creates the opportunity to do a lot of things well to help to knit back together downtown with Edo, and then help to really improve that overall game day experience. So you can imagine, instead of Minute Maid and or Shell Stadium being surrounded by surface parking lots, you're going to have a very large park space that's there, with activities and programs and other types of events to be able to offer a way to be able to enhance that overall experience on things like game days, but then also every day, right? So it just becomes this really great amenity for our community. It is one that only happens through the highway project's implementation. And so it's an incredibly important, but also complex project that we're working right now with a number of partners to advance.
Yeah, that's right. So someday we'll have, every Discovery Green is in front of the convention center, the George R. Brown Convention Center, and then this will kind of be on the other side, like think of as the back door behind the convention center, and right by the Minute Maid Park where the Astros play. 30 acres is a long, long way, and it starts. This park will hang from start about what street to where are the boundaries north and south on that roughly?
Roughly from Texas to Polk Streets.
Wow. A possible amphitheater, green space, of course. Who knows what else you can put there?
Yeah, it's and that's the fun part, really, is talking about what it can be. But let's remember, this is not just earth and land. This is going to be the cap on top of a highway. So not everything is possible, but right now what we're doing is we're working with TxDOT to determine how we create as much carrying capacity for that cap, so that we can implement as big an idea as possible in that space. So we're not likely building, skyscrapers or anything like that, but we do want to create, wonderful places for people to congregate and to enjoy being outside, thinking about how to introduce more greenery, more trees and those kinds of elements to create more shade in that area. All of those are amongst the type of priorities that we're exploring right now through that design process.
Right, right. And you mentioned earlier Clyde Warren Park in Dallas, which you know, John Goff of Crescent, the company up there. He's from Lake Jackson down south of Houston, but he's lived in Fort Worth a long time, and he's a developer, and he kind of got the ball rolling on this Clyde Warren Park where there was a freeway. It was depressed, and so he said, why don't we try a deck park? All it's around this place now is kind of separating, I guess, uptown from downtown Dallas. And right now, all this land is around it is now surface parking lots, maybe a drive-in bank and stuff like that. They built a park on top. It's beautiful green space. Families like to go there everything during the week. And now surrounding it, where those parking lots were and the drive-in bank was, etc. Major buildings, tall buildings, beautiful, places to live, places to work, and the corporate headquarters for the whole global headquarters for the CBRE organization are there. If anybody thinks about locations a lot, CBRE is they're a global real estate company, and they chose to put their global headquarters across the street from this deck park or cap park, whatever we're going to call it. So I think not only is the 30 acres on top of what's going to happen there over the depressed freeways, but what's around it is going to make a big difference too. If you have a pretty green space there that people want to look out and have coffee there in the morning and whatever, from your condo, it's going to be pretty cool. And what the other idea you mentioned, it's pretty exciting, is that's, like you said, that's the boundary between downtown and the east side, Edo. So you are basically erasing the boundary between downtown and what's next to it. So the downtown we've known since those freeways were put in 60 years ago or something, a long time ago, the boundaries we've known are kind of being erased. Downtown is growing, and I think that's going to be good for everybody.
If you don't mind me saying, I mean, I think you're exactly right about, erasing that barrier, right? That currently subdivides the two neighborhoods. But I would say it's even more than that, because in addition to erasing that wall and erasing that barrier, you're also stitching back together and really helping to galvanize the relationship between those two neighborhoods. So it's not just removing something, it's also adding something that is really going to help to unite those two neighborhoods.
That's exciting concept. I mean, I hope I'm there to see it when it's finished, man.
we all got to keep holding on. Yeah. So
yeah, it's okay. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about was, the I think we're calling it Main Street Promenade. Mm-hmm. The very lower or upper or whatever end of Main Street near the University of Houston downtown. What's going on down there, Kris?
Yeah, so this is a project we've been working on for a couple of years, and it really speaks to a couple of key priorities. Number one, Main Street, really since the introduction of the rail, Main Street has not really been a good place to drive a car, right? And so when you talk to folks up and down that corridor, they tell you that the only time you see somebody driving on Main Street is really when they're going to valet going to a hotel or they're lost, right? And so because of that, the city council closed Main Street to cars back in March of 2023. And we have been advancing a design concept to really think about transforming Main Street into what we're calling a pedestrian promenade. And so what it does is it really unlocks the opportunity to do a couple of things. Number one is everybody wants downtown to have a better offering for retail, shopping, restaurants, right? Places to go out and be. And Main Street is that opportunity because of its essentially its naturally occurring clustered storefronts that are there that speak to the historic nature of building design. That is the oldest part of the city of Houston. Obviously, Allen's Landing at the northern portion of this design concept is where our city began. And so some of those buildings are the earliest and oldest buildings that remain in the city of Houston. And so those buildings speak to what life was like in the 19th century, inclusive of having active ground floor use, which is critical for us to create that type of retail, restaurant, active entertainment type of district that people are looking for. By closing it off to cars, it allows us to also create sort of an undisturbed pedestrian experience. And that's important for us because right now, Main Street, there's a lot of jigs and jags along Main Street as you try to make your way through that because of all of the encroachments and all the sort of historical interventions that appear in that space. And we really want to streamline that to create a better protected but logical experience up and down Main Street. So that's a really exciting project for us. You know, it's one that we have taken to the community and really received overwhelming support amongst the business community as well as the property owners up and down Main Street. This experience would stretch 7 blocks in total. So you can imagine all the way from Allen's Landing on the north side down to Lamar on the south side. So it really creates this unique experience unlike anything else in Houston. And this is very important for us as we talk about how to unlock the potential for our bayou or river-like experience, the way that could potentially feed into downtown, but then also vice versa, how we continue to accelerate the relationship of downtown with its bayou network. We do have a waterfront. How do we continue to explore those experiences with all of the majesty of the Buffalo Bayou and the parks and trails that run adjacent to it? We have Buffalo Bayou Partnership, who is expanding that trail system eastward through Buffalo Bayou East. You know, eventually that can reach to and beyond East River, which is Midway's major project on the east side. So really thinking about how we link all of these experiences in a way that is going to be somewhat novel for Houstonians because it's going to have a high level of pedestrian protection. But in some ways, it's not new at all, right? It's really speaking to the way that our cities were originally designed, and it's the way that cities are being designed all across the country to be able to offer these alternatives to a car-first lifestyle. We want to create some balance with that. And so this environment enables us to come together as Houstonians to be able to enjoy, an improved retail, restaurant, entertainment amenity, but also then get connected to some of the other great spaces and unique moments that are all around Central Houston.
Yeah. So we expect to see things like sidewalk cafes that come out, and we'd see a connection to the bio, which they've done a marvelous job making that a beautiful place. It's the B-roll on all the sports things when they're playing in Houston. If we have the World Series again, fingers crossed, there'll be the aerial shot of here's Houston. It'll go down the bio, and that's with the magnificent skyline behind it, the green space in front. It's really a great shot. Hopefully they'll keep on going.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you mentioned, sort of a cafe lifestyle. I mean, we've actually just also launched a program to be able to incentivize our storefront businesses to be able to create those kinds of experiences up and down Main Street. So we just got that approved last month. We're in the process of being able to roll out those granting opportunities to be able to facilitate those outcomes, because that's exactly what we want. Is we want those businesses to have a more direct relationship with the public realm to be able to create that street life and activation.
That sounds great, man. Sounds great. Kind of reminds me of maybe a little bit of 16th Street in Denver, where they have just the mass transit down the middle, and
Yep.
but you everything else is pedestrian and stuff. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that.
If I could just add one more comment
Yeah.
about that, because we've talked about two projects that are highly transformative in nature, right? That are going to, just create a very new experience for Houstonians in downtown. While the Edo Cap is still 12 years away,
Mhm.
Main Street is on a fast track. Our goal for Main Street is to be able to complete that capital project by the arrival of the World Cup in 2026.
Oh,
So we are moving with this project, and working to manage a number of different, you know, unique challenges for that area. But we're very excited about it, and we're very excited to be able to cut the ribbon on it by the time really the world's focus is on Houston as a part of the FIFA World Cup in 2026.
I think the big expansion to the convention center will be done by that time, won't it? Or
2028. So yeah, their goal is to open the new building in time for the RNC, which will be here in 28.
28 way, yeah. And I guess I've heard some talk about the way that expansion on the south side of the convention center interacts with the or feeds into the new Edo Cap Park someday, 12 years from now. Have you figured out how that's going to look?
Yeah, and that's we're excited to be working with our partners with Houston First, on that project. The convention center expansion, obviously made possible by Senate Bill 1057 last year, which created the financial resources necessary to build this new facility in the convention center. A part of their strategy is to begin to rethink the relationship of the convention center so that it doesn't just simply have one front door. Of course, today it opens onto Discovery Green, but the convention center in our future will also open eastward into Edo. And so it will essentially have two front doors, and it will have a relationship with both sides into Edo and into downtown. So that's a critical component to this, and they play an important role as we think about really that design for that cap, because the cap is going to be their front door in Edo. And so it's really important that we get that right for all of the millions of visitors who come to that facility each year.
I know, and you alluded to this a minute ago. Some of these concepts we're talking about here, from coming in from all over the world, uh, include like conversion of office space. We know that everywhere, downtown, all over our city, and we had so much built in the early '80s, and some of these buildings are now considered obsolete, and everybody's thinking, what can we do with them? What can we do with the Exxon building at 800 Bell? What can we do with all these other buildings? I know that's on your agenda, and what are you thinking about that?
So we're pursuing conversions on a couple of fronts. So earlier we talked about the International Downtown Association. That is one of the IDA's two major federal priorities, is office conversions and homelessness. And so we are working with the IDA to be able to advance a bill in Congress. The idea is to create an office conversion tax credit. So similar to a historic tax credit, which has basically enabled adaptive reuse and historic preservation to make financial sense. Similar to affordable housing tax credits, which creates the most powerful tool that local communities have to be able to enable the creation of affordable housing. We are looking to stand up a tool that will enable the repurposing of some of these obsolete office towers, and create a new life, as residences or other types of use. So that's one of the major approaches that we're taking. We're also thinking about it at the tactical level here in Houston. And so through our redevelopment authority, we've also created a budgetary line item that lets us participate with initial equity to be able to support an office conversion project. We are working hand in hand with a number of developers who are looking at conversion opportunities in downtown. We've got 2 or 3 right now, which are in active stages of due diligence and design. And this follows a very successful conversion that we had last year with 1600 Smith and DeBartolo, turning that into what is now called Elevate, which is a fabulous new residential project on the west side of our downtown. So conversions are a priority for us. We look around our downtown, and while we have 50 million square feet of office space, some of that office space is no longer relevant by modern standards. And so what we see are opportunities to be able to transform some of those buildings to create a new life for other purposes. And that also helps us to advance other goals that we have for downtown, first and foremost of which is growing our residential neighborhood. That's been a goal of ours for the last 15 years, and it will continue to be one.
Workforce housing, could you develop some of that with these obsolete office buildings? Is that a possibility?
It's a possibility, especially through the federal tax credit. So if that tax credit becomes a reality, it will likely also have a requirement that a certain percentage of the residential units that are delivered through a conversion project are delivered as attainable housing. And so that is something that is important to us as well as we think about really expanding the breadth of opportunity for households in our downtown. We think we can grow faster when we can welcome more potential residents in here. And that's really critical to our ongoing sustainability and resiliency as a community.
Okay. And real quickly, I know we're running out of time here, but the homeless situation, what could these buildings be used to address that, or what have you got cooking on the homeless front, Kris?
Yeah, we're working with the mayoral administration on a separate strategy related to homelessness, and I think that this is something that the mayor has teased at the state of the city. The Houston Chronicle reported on it last Sunday. We are looking to introduce really the next chapter of the Houston saga for responding to homelessness. Houston's obviously captured a number of national headlines for its efficacy in reducing homelessness, but we still have some work to do, particularly as it relates to where our homeless system begins to serve people experiencing homelessness, which is on the street. And that creates the visual homelessness that many individuals respond to and are concerned about. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to rethink the way that our homelessness response system, where we prioritize treatment and where we place literally the front door to that response network. And so we're talking about how do we create, an indoor space where people can go who need help. And they can essentially wait for housing there. So that is something that it's a big idea. I'm oversimplifying it right now, but it's a critical part of us continuing to really cover that last mile in addressing homelessness locally, which is ending street homelessness.
Okay. Now I know. The other thing that's big news about downtown since the last time we talked, Chevron moving its headquarters down to Houston. They're leaving Northern California and moving their headquarters here. I don't know if it's actually happened yet, but they said yes, we'll have some people here in the C-suite probably in this year, right? 2024, I believe, is what the press releases have been saying.
Yeah, they are knee deep in managing that transition. Over the next few years, they're going to be moving as many as 2,000 individuals, from the West Coast and other locations to downtown Houston. They're consolidating their operations and have put a flag in the ground and declared downtown Houston their home. And it was such sorely needed news at the time that it was announced. You'll recall that we were coming off a series of really, really challenging natural disasters. That 1-2 punch, it made for a tough summer. So Chevron's news was really a welcome breath of fresh air. So we just solely, surely appreciate their leadership and their stewardship of downtown and their selection of downtown Houston as their official corporate headquarters.
As our CEO, Mike Worth, has he opened shop down here yet? Do you know if he's working out of? I guess it's 1400 Smith and 1500 Louisiana. They're two buildings.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know the whereabouts of all of their C-suite and where they're setting up their office, but I know the plan is that they're all going to be moving to downtown.
Well, I know Chevron is like one of the key sponsor, I believe, of your October 16th State of Downtown luncheon. Have you asked Mr. Worth if he'd come make say hello?
We are definitely coordinating with Chevron, and are looking to have some of their executives make an appearance at our event and maybe even say a few words. They are a big believer in downtown Houston. They're a big supporter of our work, and really want to make this a great place for their employees. And they recognize that a lot of the initiatives that we are leading are going to help to continue to transform that and make it a place that's easy for them to recruit talent to. So we appreciate their support, and we look forward to them being a part of our event for sure.
Yeah, I would be interested to see what it's going to mean for growth here and moving people here. Kris Larson, thanks, man. Always good to talk to you. Very interesting material today. You've got a lot going on. I know you're super busy, so thanks for coming in, taking time to talk with us, and we appreciate that. And hope to see you soon. We will see you soon at your big luncheon coming up next month.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Ralph. And perhaps next time I'll get the desk cleaned before our next one of these.
Hey, you can't see my desktop. It's not pretty. Thank you, Kris.
Thank you.